This video today is just basically going to be one of my munch-ons, and really it's a speculation instead of, really it's a speculation compared to an actual, any conclusion whatsoever. This has neither premises nor, facts or ideas. It's more just kind of wandering around the mind. And this is simply on the finite versus the infinite. Not. I almost want to say knowledge of mankind, but I have yet to actually defend the existence or even a reason to believe in the existence of true knowledge or knowledge. But perhaps this is more this is epistemological, and I can't even define my own or choose my own epistemological fundamental belief. Nevertheless, this is again about the finite versus the infinite, and what I do know, that is a phrase you do not hear too often from me. What I do know. It almost tastes sweet on the tongue. But I do know the empirical world is finite. And this is a very, very fundamental, very basic, almost premise, although I have no other premise or conclusion. But this is what I do know, that the empirical world is finite. Our experiences are finite. Everything with which people interact is finite. Again, it's empirical. And now the question is if there is a possibility of an infinite world. And it would obviously have to be separate from the finite. And I can think of a few things that have the opportunity, or there's potential for them to become infinite. I have no reason to believe that they are, and no reason to believe that they are otherwise. So again, this is just almost formulating a rough draft. It's more creating an outline of thought. But I wrote, again, taking notes that will make no sense. I wrote two possible finite objects or beings, if I am so bold as to use that terminology. But the example is in the possibilities. So granted, this isn't exactly a very monotheistic opinion at this point. Some could argue otherwise, but this is all just theological at this point. Focusing on philosophy, possibilities seem to be potentially infinite, as well as exceptions, and that is simply this conundrum I have had for nearly a year by now and still have not been able to answer. And it is, you see, I hesitantly believe that there is always an exception to the rule, but all of a sudden we have entered into what may or may not be the finite, and that is that if there is always an exception to the rule, is there not an exception to that exception, and then an exception to that exception, and then an exception to the exception of the exception of the exception of the exception, etc. Need I truly continue? Yeah, I will not continue. So there's the possibility for the infinite there, because I still, despite this problem, peccadillo, in my opinion, what would stump others and cause or refute others' beliefs, I think oughtn't to be truly that destructive, almost. Because I truly do think that there are exceptions to the rule. And, well, I needn't continue with that strain. But then, of course, I'm very, very sure that a philosopher has already tackled this problem. I would be stunned, absolutely stunned, if this was not already dealt with. But again, it's just the possibilities, as in the possibilities for something to be or not to be. That is so similar to Hamlet. I think that's humorous. Maybe some of you will also laugh. Probably not, but again, there are so many possibilities for my being to have never occurred, empirically at least. Empirically. My birth could have. I mean, this doesn't take or require much thought at all. The idea that perhaps my mother and my father, or just probabilities themselves. I don't really want to get into detail about this because for some reason in front of a computer, or if this is going on YouTube, talking about conception somehow seems dirty. And I don't know why. But there are so many possibilities for my conception to have been the conception of one with slightly different DNA, and I really don't want to go on about this. But fill in the blanks for me. It's not dirty when you think it. It is dirty when you say it. I think. That is not one of the few things I know. It's one of the few things I feel. But, yeah, it's just this kind of conjecture that perhaps there's a finite world, and the finite world is empirical. And this isn't necessarily requiring that the non-empirical world, the other epistemological world of ideas, the ideal world, or idealism, it doesn't entail that entire world is infinite if the empirical world is finite. It's that perhaps there is another third world, maybe, realm, almost a third fundamental triad of epistemology, and it is that there's the empirical finite, there is the idealist finite, and then there is an infinite world where some things truly are infinite. And I realize that with the exception of God, the infinite has been rejected, largely rejected. But at the same time, I feel as if the some non-empirical things can be infinite, perhaps. It can't be quantified, and if there's a lack of quantification, maybe it's infinite. I don't know. I really don't know, and I probably did not explain my conjecture very well, if I did at all. So if you have any philosopher who has delved into this subject, or if you have a philosophical belief, or in fact if there's anything pertaining to this question in periodic sentences that I have portrayed, please comment or give me any information, because this is largely, if not totally, a question, with the exception of the empirical world being finite. Of that I am convinced. But other than that, please tell me your thoughts, or any philosopher's thoughts. I don't know. Thank you.